Okay, so in the previous part, we discussed about the concept marketing. Okay, where and in our discussion, we also say that um, um, we understand marketing goes beyond advertising, public advertising, promotional concepts, and also marketing mix variables. Okay. Now, before we go further, can I please confirm that everyone can hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, no problem.
Okay. Brilliant.
Nice and clear.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Okay. Um, Okay, thank you for your text message, for your chat. All right, now let's look at it further, okay? We also discussed the customer-driven marketing strategy that contains two key components. The first one is target market decision. The second one is value proposition decision, okay? The target market decision has been considered as the first strategic decision because the target market decision will lead to understanding the capabilities that the organization needs to develop. Okay, why is that? Because different target market has different needs. Okay, therefore the capability that the organizations need to develop should also be different. Okay, let's say for argument's sake, we simplify the target market on this planet. We have the luxury target market, okay? The other one is the economy target market, okay? Of course, in our industry, we have more than just two market segments here, okay? What do they need? Well, this luxury guys say, well, I want something top level, okay? Top tier brands, top level of qualities, that reflects who I am. I'm what I wear, for instance. That you may recall that kind of campaign some time ago. Toyota used to run a campaign back in the 1970s. Basically, you are what you drive. Okay, so that kind of thing that that these guys needs. Okay, well, to fulfill that needs, okay, from the marketing perspective, the company needs to develop top level of products. Okay. High branded type of attributes, okay, the image, the packaging, and so on and so forth, right? Price is not a constraint with these kind of customers, okay? Placements, you do not want to distribute your product intensively because it is probably it is probably not reflecting the exclusivity of the brand, okay? So you can look at Hermes, Louis Vuitton, for instance, there are reasons why they are not available at Target or Kmart, all right? It's not about the volume. It is about giving the customers the identity that they need, okay? So it should be exclusive, right? Promotion, yes, it should be very targeted in terms of promotional strategies, targeted to the upscale market, okay? Whilst if you look at the economy segments, they're different. Right? Well, yeah, I just want decent product. It means it does the job. That's fine. I'm happy with that. Okay. Price, well, should be familiar to. It should be friendly to my purchase power. Okay. Placement, well, since if you look at that, the placement here requires if you distribute that exclusively, then you may not meet the goal of the company because your price would be affordable for the customers. Therefore, you need to have the intensive distribution. Otherwise, you are not going to make the volume. Eventually, you're not going to make the entire business. Okay. Promotion would be massive promotion if you are in fast-moving consumer goods category. Okay. That requires you two sets of different capabilities, fulfilling the need of the luxury segment, and the other one is to fulfill the need of the economy segments. All right. For instance, from placement perspective, you need to have a larger sales management spectrum when it comes to economy segment compared to the luxury segments. Okay. So in the case of luxury segment, yeah, you may need to build the exclusivity, the so you can spoil your customers in your own store, like what Hermes and Louis Vuitton have been doing so far. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea that target market decision is a strategic decision, the first strategic decision that the company is making, because selecting the customers will imply, will trigger the insights on what kind of capabilities that the organization need to build to fulfill that needs. Okay. The second decision is the value proposition decision, okay, which is basically about the sets of benefits or values the company promises to meet the customer's needs. Okay, now this is the thing. To understand the customers, okay, the customers or the target market should mirror with the value proposition that we create. Okay, whatever proposition that we, if you analyze a target market of a brand, then you can also look at the value proposition that or the benefit of this product, because these two should be aligned. Okay, you expect them to match one to another, right? Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for the for us. Okay. Right, so that's basically the main points about the customer-driven marketing strategy. Okay, and we also know there are 5 marketing management orientations that include production, product selling, selling concept, marketing concept, and also the societal marketing concept. Okay, let's discuss this one briefly. Okay, the selling. The production concept is actually adopted by companies who want to focus on the availability and affordability of the offering of the product. Okay, this company normally assumes that one size fits everybody. Okay, so they create one thing to meet everybody's needs. They assume everybody, all customers are the same. Okay, this is what we call in the next few weeks, we will be learning target marketing. We'll find that these guys actually adopt what we call as mass marketing strategy. Okay, right. So that's production concept. And you may recall that a brand like Ford, for instance, Henry Ford, when he wanted to modernize the way American people transport themselves, he actually introduced Model T, and he said that, well, I'm going to offer the customers any color as long as it is black. Okay, well, what does it mean? Well, he only offered one color. Why is that? Because he can reduce the production costs. Okay, if that's the case, then he can achieve the affordability and eventually availability of the product. Okay. The product concept is adopted by companies that focus more on the product itself, the features, the innovation, the performance, the quality of the product. Okay, so if you look at companies that focus their efforts on these things, then it is basically because the company adopts the product concept. And selling concepts is basically adopted by companies that perform high level of selling and promotional efforts. Okay, these companies believe that they are not going to make the volume unless they do a large scale selling and promotional efforts. Okay, if you look at on your TV, you may every night you may be able to find insurance companies advertising their services. Okay, because these products require a lot of reminders, requires a lot of a large effort of promotional activities. Okay? Marketing concept basically is adopted by companies that believe that we will win the customers if we meet their needs and wants, which is basically the one that we discussed before. And in doing so, we need to research their needs and wants so that we can design the offering to meet their needs. Okay, and last one is basically societal marketing concept that is seeking for the balance between the company's profits, consumers' wants, and society's interest. Okay, so this is actually this actually involves the ethical and sustainable marketing that we are going to discuss in Module 6. Okay, right. So that's basically the customer-driven marketing strategy in a nutshell. Okay. And the next thing is basically to introduce to you the extended marketing mix variables. Originally, we know the core marketing mix variables: product, price, place, and promotion. They are the 4 P's, the core marketing mix variables. Okay, and the services marketing guys. Actually, it was pioneered by another marketing scholar, Landberry, who suggested the essence of marketing is relationship, especially in regards to the services marketing. And finally, people suggest that okay, we need to consider the other 3 P's that include people, process, and physical evidence. Okay, people basically include the staff involved in providing with the service. Process actually is about the procedure, the system to provide the service for the customers, and physical evidence is actually about the intangible cues that we use to symbolize that the service is delivered for the customers. Okay. All right. So that's basically this topic, guys. Now, the other thing that I'd like to discuss with you is actually about, I got the model here, sorry, is actually briefly about the environmental forces. In this conversation, we discussed about the company, the marketer try to create value for the customers, but actually that model that we discussed earlier is probably a bit too oversimplified, because actually in doing that job, we also need to consider the other factors here, and that's actually the one that we are going to discuss. Yep, we get it in the at the end of the presentation. I'm going to upload this presentation. So this is actually in-text reference I put in, and you're going to get it. I believe you asked that question because if you want to use it for your reference. So yes, you are going to get it when I upload the slides. Okay, no problem, no problem. Okay, right. So again, actually, that model is probably a bit oversimplified, because in real life, in fulfilling our task as a marketer to win the consumers, we also need to work we also need to consider the other factors. Okay, the marketing intermediaries or the middleman. Okay, the resellers. If you are in the fast-moving consumer goods, you need to consider working with Woolies and Coles, for instance. Okay. And the other convenience stores, okay, and you also need to look at your competitors, okay, in doing the job, and actually, our resellers or our middleman may also be working with our competitors as well, so kind of in bed with the enemies, okay, and we also need to work with the suppliers basically, because the suppliers help us to make sure that we can fulfill the promise for the customers, right? And on top of that, we also need to consider the major environmental forces that affect everybody, okay? Because these major environmental forces actually gives pressure, right? Gives impact to everybody in here. Everybody in here and includes us as well, okay? All right, so what I'm going to do next is to briefly discuss about the environmental forces. I don't think we can complete our discussion about environmental forces today, but I just want to bring you to the main ones today, and after that we are going to continue that next week in the next session. Okay. Oops. Well, this is a brief discussion about the strategic planning. Okay, it is the process of developing and maintaining strategic fit, okay, between the organization's goals or objectives and the capabilities, because of the market opportunities out there are a constant change, constant change. Okay, so in other words, a strategic planning actually gives us the opportunity to assess whether we can still be competitive or not in the market. In doing so, we need to assess the environmental forces out there, and also the capabilities that we have internally. Do we need to acquire new capabilities? That is the main questions in here, right? Can we still compete in this industry? If we can't, is it crucial for us to be able to compete in this industry? If not, then we may want to exit from this industry, right? If we decide, yes, we still need to compete in this industry, there is no other choice, then if we are not competitive anymore, do we need to develop new capabilities, acquire new technologies, for instance, or redesign our organization model, for instance, or hire new talents, for instance, that can do that job, for instance. Okay, so that's the questions in the strategic planning process. Okay, I'm not going to discuss that further, but in a nutshell, we have corporate level and also at business level when it comes to strategic planning process. Okay, right. The main things that the things that I'd like to bring to you today is actually again about these environmental forces, and next week we are going in next session we are going to revisit that the mission statements briefly, and after that we discuss we are going to continue with the other elements of the environmental forces. Okay. Okay, so this is the micro environmental forces that includes the company, suppliers, marketing intermediaries, competitors, publics, and customers. Okay, the main point when we analyze these guys basically revolve around how they affect the value that we create, communicate, and deliver. Remember the definition of marketing that we discussed, okay? Because these guys affect the value that we create as an organization, okay? So when you analyze these guys, okay, in your assessments, please make sure that your focus is to analyze how they bring impact to your the value that we are going to create for the customers, okay? Right. So the company, for instance, includes a number of business functions. We work hand in hand to create the value for the customers, communicate the values for the customers, and also deliver value for the customers. All right. When it comes to the company itself, we actually think about the aspect of the people aspect, the process aspect, and the other organizational aspect, okay, such as the structure of the organization, the culture of the organization. They actually become the source of resources, okay, or assets for the organization. So when you analyze the company, actually that leads to the internal side, the internal aspect of the company. You actually expect to get to understand the strengths and weaknesses of the organization. Okay, for instance, some organization may be good in terms of the manufacturing process or technological process or innovation process. That becomes the assets in fulfilling the customer's needs. That becomes the assets in bringing value for the customers. Okay. Right. Suppliers. Suppliers is another important element that we also need to consider, because suppliers help us to meet the promise for the customers. The suppliers help us with the raw materials, packaging materials, and sometimes some business model also includes the outsourcing the labor, for instance, Okay, so that's basically the role of our suppliers. Okay, marketing intermediaries, again, they help us promoting, selling, and distributing the products. They are the resellers, the middleman. Okay, that helps us creating, communicating, and delivering value for the customers. Right, now competitors. Well, understanding competitors are also critical for us because that helps directing what we need to offer for the customers. Okay, the other reason why we need to understand the competitors is because we are not going to create value only for the customers. We are going to create superior value for the customers because customers have options. Okay. Right, so just a bit of reminder, guys, when you analyze later on, especially for your assessment tool, when you analyze your target market, I would suggest that you do not consider your target market as everybody, because the day that we can target everybody is over, unless you are the monopoly holder, okay? The world out there is so competitive, therefore we need to think about building superior customer value, okay? All right, the question is, if understanding competitors is also critical, how do you understand them? Well, the first thing that we need to do is to understand who they are, which is basically about the profile, okay? Who are they? Who are our competitors, right? Now, this slide shows how we can group the competitors into direct, indirect, and product substitutes, okay? If we analyze the competitors using this tool, the first thing that you want to understand is needs. What is the customer's need that you guys are trying to fulfill? Okay, because the definition of how do we define the competitors? Well, competitors is actually defined as they are companies that fulfill, that deploy similar strategies to us in that industry. Okay, what do we mean by strategies? Again, as we discussed before, they include target market, they include positioning, they include the marketing mix variables. Right, so if they deploy similarities in those areas, then yes, we are fighting to get to win the same customers, okay, or similar customers, right? So the closer they are, that means they are our direct competitors. And if they are far to meeting the same customer's need, then they are the indirect. And our customers may also buy a different product category to meet their need. That becomes the product substitutes. Okay. The other thing that we also need to consider is to assess the competitors' offering, okay, by reviewing their marketing mix variables, okay, how good they are in terms of what is it that they're offering, okay. So we can look at the products, okay. They may offer more than one product, okay. So look at the flagship of their product, okay. What is it that that becomes their major business? All right. Yes, they may have a range of products, but what is it that has become? What is the product that has become the backbone? Right. What is their pricing policies? What is their major pricing strategies? Okay. Specifically, how much they offer. Right. When it comes to specific product categories. Okay. How do they distribute their products? Okay. And how they promote it? Right. At high level, what is their promise for the customers after we analyze the product, price, place, and promotion. Okay. Now that actually this is quite standard in terms of writing a marketing plan, understanding the competitors, understanding their marketing mix variables, because we can also look at it as a benchmark in the industry. Okay. Now I got a question last time a couple of years ago. Someone mentioned to me, my marketing plan suggests that in my marketing plan, I don't have competitors. I said, can you please look into it? Because very likely our industries are competitive, very likely. Now, because my product is new, my product is a brand new product category, no one else has offered that. Okay, then you may be trapped into understanding competitors as only in product category. Okay, you define competitors from your perspective, not from the customer's perspective. From the customer's perspective, it is their decision which brand that they want to buy, either your new product category or their product category. Okay, think about iPads, which is arguably the first one in the tablet computer. When they launched iPads, the tablet computer category has not been established as good as it is now. Okay, so at that time, the competitors, if you look at Steve Jobs' presentation, if you watch the link that I'm going to give you in the previous slides, you'll find that they consider a laptop as the competitor, the netbook as the competitor, because at that time the category is not established, right? Now the business landscape is different today because the tablet computer has been established. So you have more varieties, you have more competitors in the same category. But at that time, the question was about which products that the customers are going to use if your product is not available. I think that is the best way to look at your competitors. All right. Don't look at it from a product category perspective. Ask yourself, if my product is not available, what product that customers are going to use? What products that customers are going to consume? Okay, to fulfill their need, because the customers' needs exist regardless you exist or not, regardless your offering exists or not. Okay, so they are your competitors basically. Okay, again, unless you are the monopoly holder in that industry, you will have competitors. Okay, if you are the monopoly holder like City Water, for instance, or City Railway, yes, you are you don't have competitors. Right? Okay, now public is interesting. Public is not our target market. But their voice may affect the effectiveness of our value delivery. Okay, you may recall that the not-for-profit organizations are busy running campaign against soft drink, for instance, and also sugary products, for instance. If the campaign has given the impact for customers to think about, to raise the health awareness. Okay, and if you look at the some product categories in those areas such as soft drink or sugary products, you may find a declining trend. For instance, I'm not surprised if you find a declining trend from consumption perspective. Okay. Right, and customers, the focus of the entire value delivery system, we include these guys here: consumer market, business market, government market. For your assessments, I would suggest that you focus on consumer market, not the business market. The reason for that is, I'm not saying that the concepts that we learn here are not, enough for us to analyze business market, but business market requires us to some elements of business markets are basically under the surface, so it may be hard for us to analyze the business markets. If you focus on consumer market in your assessment, that will be recommended. Okay. And we are going to discuss customers in the customer behavior more comprehensively, the customer behavior topic more comprehensively. Okay. But briefly, what we need to understand when it comes to understanding customers is their needs, their preferences, their behavior, and what factors affecting them. Okay. Right. So that's basically the main points I'd like to bring to you today. And any questions, guys, before I show you another file? Any questions? All good? Right. If you don't have any questions, just briefly, this is timetable. Thanks a lot for joining me, and this is timetable that I have posted in the announcement board. Okay, and we are going to use the same link for our meeting. Okay, and we are going to have next session in week 3. So every second week, basically. And your assessment one is due on Friday, 13th July, Sydney time. And second assessments, Friday, 10th of August. And third assessment a week after that on Friday, 17th of August. Okay. Now, the other thing I'm going to upload to the portal is this database, all right? Look, I'm not sure whether you can access the data. This is from Torrens University, Australia, and this is about chocolate industry. The assessment is due before midnight, Sydney time, right? Does it answer your question? Okay, so before midnight, Sydney time, right? Okay, right. And this, have a look at this data, this database, because that helps you a lot to analyze the chocolate market industry, okay? That contains the driving forces in this industry, right? The size, the major players. If you look at that, it's $5.7 billion industry. That's the annual growth, right? You can find some stats as well here, right? The major players. I'm going to bring to you the other one. Okay, the external drivers. What are the driving forces in this industry, and so on and so forth, right? That helps you a lot in your analysis. Okay, so I'm going to upload it. Okay, probably sometime next week because my current laptop is it's pretty average. So and once after I upload it, please make sure that you go through it because that helps you with your assessment. Yeah. Any questions, guys? Yes, indeed, it is. All right, yeah. Well, I don't know, Gavin. I can't explain that, but Famish, I'm going to upload it to the discussion forum, probably assessment forum. Okay. What's that space? Basically, I'm going to upload it as soon as practically possible for me. Yeah. Yes, it is part of the main ingredient, Pablo. Part of the main ingredient of the topic of marketing course. Right. We are going to learn. It is actually core strategic decision. Segmentation, targeting, positioning is core strategy of marketing, or probably core strategy of a business. Okay. All right. Any other questions, guys? Any other questions? Anum, questions from you? No? Dan? Okay, thanks. Okay, thanks a lot. Right, Jess, any questions? Okay. Well, if you don't have any questions, I'll see you in the next module and in the next session. And look, if you have questions, appreciate if you can send me an email instead of class message, because for class message, I need to access the portal and I need to access my computer. Okay. If you email it to me, I can reply to you using my phone, basically. Okay. All right. Have a good one, guys, and I'll see you in the next session. Okay, bye.
Cheers, Eddie. Thank you, mate. Bye-bye.